you plan to deal with challenges that are facing the country, and also the dockets that they'll actually be taking over? Those are different dockets. So far, we've seen the CS nominee for Interior, that is Kithuge Kindiki, who was actually vetted. We've seen the CS nominee for Trade, Foreign Affairs, Environment, Matters Health, the Prime Cabinet Secretary. All those have actually gotten to face the panel that is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly, and that is Moses Wetangula, and also leaders from the minority and the majority side. And at the end of it all, we expect a report to be tabled whether they are going to approve or not. And also the minority side is going to table their report and say, this is exactly what we found, and we don't feel like this person whom we vetted actually fits the bill. And I don't know, Simba, what did you pick? Do you feel like the questions that are being asked to these CS nominees are the questions that we want them to address?
In very important detail, Amai, it's a good thing that you're actually picking on that. Because if you look at some of the promises that majority of the cabinet secretaries nominees are making, and I will take you back to last week, Amai, for lack of a better word, and it teased this online when I said, are these the same ideas, Amoy, that the previous government has been on that are getting now represented as new ideas? Case in point, if you listen to the CS nominee, Treasury Njuguna, he spoke about looking for cheaper loans, trying to restructure our current debt. But if you listen to Ukuri Yatani when he came in our office, in fact, he's not quite old in our office, he also said the same thing, that I'm coming in to look for cheaper debt, restructure our debt that we already do have, as we try to chart a proper way out of the debt crisis that we are already in. I mean, not so much really of new ideas. There's the same ideas that are getting represented afresh by these cabinet secretaries. You like to see tougher questions from the vetting committee, especially on integrity, isn't it?
Exactly.
But did you watch Aisha Juma's vetting as well? I mean, not so much really on integrity, and that was avoided as well when you listen to the promises for Murkomen as well.
What the chair said was, this is not the reason as to some of them, as the reason as why some of them were actually nominated. They were nominated because of their capabilities. So matters of to do with integrity, academics and all that are neither here or there. So to some extent, this is what I feel as a person. I feel we are not probing them enough. It's not proper vetting for the job. And these are important dockets. These are what drives this country. Yes. So we need people to be taken into account and asked questions properly, because I feel, there are pedestrian questions where you're asking somebody, where do you get your strength? What motivates you, and things like that. Things that in most cases don't have anything to do with
Tell us about your life journey, and then...
and at the end of the day, when they come and do not deliver, then we start asking questions. Where exactly did we go wrong? You start calling them to Parliament and trying to find answers from them, and asking what went wrong in this particular department or docket. But when you're vetting them, you're not asking questions on exactly how they plan to deliver on some of the things that are very key to the country.
Indeed. Yeah.
So the questions, for me, I think they're being taken through a process where it's a formality to some extent, but they're not being taken to task.
They're not being taken to task. I like how you say that, Amwai, because then indeed somebody said this, and I saw this on Twitter last week. Somebody said that I would have loved for the vetting committee to go back to all these cabinet ministries and then say, this is exactly what has gone wrong over the past 10 years. How do you plan to fix it? That should have been the start of the interview or the vetting process, and that would have been the end of that vetting process. The rest of it, not so much. So that now we know exactly how to put you to account. But did you listen to Murkomen? Every county is going to have an airstrip. And he said it's quite possible. Whoa. That's a good starting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, guess what, guys? This is exactly what it is that we're expecting today. That process is going to continue. But right here on the morning brief, let's take a tiny breather again. We come back and tell you exactly what it is that you're waking up to this morning, in as much as your dailies are concerned. Back. This is the morning drift. Let's look at what you're waking up to in terms of your dailies. And why I do know you have the standard. What are they headline?
On the standard, the headline here is the hits and misses of Ruto's first big day. This was his first Mashujaa Day, or rather national celebration that he actually attended as president, 30 days or something there after he was sworn in as president on the 13th of September. Now, the standard just tries to highlight what did he get right and what did he get wrong on this particular day. President Ruto promises to respect the rule of law, improve agriculture, expand healthcare and tackle climate change as he presides over his first National Day celebrations at the head of state. But he was silent on other areas such as the debt crisis, national healing, gender inclusiveness, and immediate measures to lower the cost of living. Let me just highlight the hits. The standard says on matters hits, he talked about agriculture, matters housing, access to credit, universal healthcare, digital superhighway, the rule of law, and also climate change, where he says grow 5 billion trees in 5 years, then 10 billion by 2032, to hire 2,700 forest rangers and 600 forest officers. Now, the misses, Simba, national healing. The standard says little commitment to heal political rifts that have always undermined nation building and unity. You can get that on the standard. And just to touch on that, Simba, is that you see, when we went to vote in for our leaders, people say it is 7 million people voted for the president. Out of the 22 million that had registered, 6.9 million people did not vote and voted for the Raila Odinga, and 8 million people did not vote. So how do you then bring the people that did not vote for you, these are close to 15 million people, to actually, rally behind you and say, you are my president and this is the country? So they feel like he missed to touch on that and bring people together.
Interesting. And then let me cross over to what we have on the Daily Nation. And I mean, there's so many topics to talk about here, but since you've already mentioned some of those the headlines that are on the standard, right here on the Daily Nation, they've focused on how Ruto has turned up heat on DCI crack squad. Read that story into pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Quite a wide coverage over the president's address there on the Mashujaa Day. But what is important to note there is that on the back of this, Amoy, there's a headline up there that you should read on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Now, it goes like this: too hot to handle after 45 days. Liz Truss throws in the towel as UK Prime Minister. By the way, that's not even in a mind. Now listen, because she's been Prime Minister, she's going to get $1 million US each year by virtue of being Prime Minister for just 45 days. Talk about being witty, isn't it, Amoy? You don't gotta work on it. Yeah, guys, I became Prime Minister 45 days. Now I'm entitled to that yearly check of $1 million.
This makes you wonder whether, when some people are looking for positions, exactly do they want to deliver, or maybe what comes to that position? But we are not going to get into that. Yeah. But the reason for her resignation is also quite interesting, Simba. She feels... Yeah.
Is it too hot to handle? Because if you look at the reason she was giving, there's mistrust within her party now, where there's nothing that, there's no decision that she makes that gets supported. The guys who are backbiting. But then Amoy, that's not even what you read into it, this particular position. I mean, it starts with Angela Merkel, then we had Boris Johnson, then now we have Liz, who's gone out. There's going to be a fourth one in what? In less than 2 years. Amoy. Talk about that being it. But then on the sideline of that, also another cholera outbreak that has been reported in 6 counties. And why? Timing again and again. Whichever president, whichever year, 2 things that you have to expect in this country: a drought outbreak and another cholera outbreak as well. Headlines that will never run away from in this country. Yeah.
Yes, we always get with those kind of headlines, and I believe this particular time is very important. We need to be finding lasting solutions for this, because there are things that can actually be avoided, you know.
Yeah, in Kenya, there are things that you move on with, and this is part of those that you have to move on with. Page 3 is the most important page in any paper. What does
Okay, now let me just take something here, and this is just trying to look at what, one of the CS that has actually been nominated for the positions, for the cabinet secretary position. This is Ababu Namwamba, and they're asking whether he can fix the mess in sports if he gets MP's nod to head the docket. Now we understand the sports docket has actually had quite a number, it has been quite dramatic for the past years, and just the leaders that get into that to head that particular docket do not do their job or something like that, because there's a push and pull from who is heading the docket, and also the stakeholders in that particular docket. Talk of the president of the FKF. Now we've seen him; he was in court, out, and all that. Now let me just take a look at what they say. Now, never had a parliamentary watchdog committee been disbanded, but when it happened in Kenya in 2016, it was for over-corruption claims, and Ababu Namwamba was at the center of it. Now, corruption scandal, which sucked in members of the Public Accounts Committee, forced the National Assembly Speaker to order that Parliament's Privileges Committee investigates claims that Mr. Namwamba's committee had been extorting and blackmailing public officials. Now, this is a person that has been nominated for the CS position, and it's a docket the sports docket is a docket that has had quite a number of scandals and drama here and there. So just wondering whether he can actually get in there and deliver. Now, the 6th committee member, Namwamba, were among them, were barred from inclusion in the new oversight committee that would be created following the disbandment of the committee he led. In its report, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission named the 26 MPs in the committee for allegedly receiving 1.5 million from former Interior Principal Secretary Muteo Iringo in return for expunging his name from the report on unexplained expenditure at the office of the president. Now you can get that story on page 14 of this Standard. That is where that story is, whether, you can read that and, make your conclusion whether Namwamba is going to fix the problem that is facing the sports docket symbol.
Yes, but there's an interesting story that the Standard is doing on page 3 on the back of the Mashujaa Day celebrations, the first for President William Ruto. And again, they've pointed out to something that has become sort of a headline, to what we have to get used to in terms of Kenyans attending public events for the president. They're saying here, Uhuru Garden opened its doors to the public as early as 6 a.m. But it was not until an hour later that people started streaming in. And then they're saying public terraces filled up slowly, as did those hugging the main jazz on both sides. They're saying low turnout marred Ruto's first Mashujaa Day celebrations, and actually get to see beautiful pictures of Kenyans celebrating Mashujaa Day together with the president right there. So, could be a thing. Well, do you think it's important to point out that it was marred by lower tenors and why? I mean, it happened. It was streamed by television stations across the country.
This is what I'm going to say, Simba. I think just like we mentioned earlier, and saying it's very important to bring people together. Yeah. And that is something, because this is a nation with of people who have different, interests when it comes to which side of the political divide they want to fix. And this country can be divided politically, like deeply divided politically. And it's important for me. I think it was important for him to address that particular issue, so that next time when we are having this, we can actually get to have, a lot of people attending this event. And also, to some extent, Kenyans, I think, like they always say, we are tired, and they feel like with the current economic times, it's a little bit tough for them to actually go in to celebrate, because they have nothing to celebrate. So what are they celebrating? Yeah.
That's it. Anyway, Amai, I mean, even as we get with those sentiments going on, we do understand that the vetting process that has already started, and right now on that panel or facing that committee is a CS nominee for agriculture, Mithika Linturi. I think it's that time that we cross over and then get to listening as well, as the committee tries to weigh in on who it really is and what it intends to do for the agriculture sector in the country. Amoy, take us over.
Right now we cross over to the county hall where that vetting process is actually happening today. Let's take a look.
Parliamentary position, and I first of all ran under Safina ticket. I lost. The next election I ran on 40 people. I lost, and then in the year 2007 I ran on a Kano ticket, and I was elected as a member of Parliament for Igembe South, and from that time I have been a member of Parliament for 3 terms consecutively until last election, when I decided to run as governor for Meru, and lost to the current governor. And Mr. Speaker, thereafter, in the wisdom of the current president, who I thank, decided to nominate me as candidate, as nominee for the position of CS Agriculture. And Mr. Speaker, that's why I am here. Before this honorable committee, I need to answer any question that may arise.
Excellent. Thank you, Honorable Lindori. We will now open the floor to members to ask you questions. We advise that you take them in batches of 4, and then you can answer them, and we go to another batch of 4. We allow members to seek clarifications where you are not clear, and even those who have asked when there's something burning, we give them an opportunity for a second bite. I'll start with the Deputy Speaker.
Good morning and congratulations, Honorable Linturi, on your nomination as Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development. As you know, that is a docket that is the people of Western Gishu County are immensely interested. As you know, agriculture is the largest sector of the Kenyan economy and the first pillar of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. I'm sure you also know that agriculture has the highest employment multiplier effect. And this is a question that was asked of me to ask you by my 25-year-old son, who is a farmer. He says the average age of the farmers in Kenya is 65, yet the highest unemployed people are the young people. So the question is, what are your plans to ensure that farming becomes profitable and that the farmers are assured of predictable income so that you can capture these young people who are unemployed? The other question is, how do you plan to assist the creation of jobs within the agriculture sector to address the high level of unemployment in the country which afflicts the youth? Thank you.
The Honorable Majority Leader, Ichungwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. For the record, my name is Kamani Shongo, MP Kikuyu. Honorable Linturi, as the Deputy Speaker has indicated, and I'm sure you're aware that agriculture forms one of the core pillars. It's actually the first pillar in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. And you're aware, I'm sure you know that it is one of the sectors that has the highest employment multiplier effect, and probably that's why the Honorable Shole is asking what plans you have to ensure that agriculture becomes profitable and creates jobs for millions of Kenyans who have no jobs. But also I would want to hear what are your plans, if approved as Minister for Agriculture, to dismantle the monopolistic cartels that have made agriculture not profitable to the majority of farmers, and especially in the dairy sector. I would want to hear what plans you have to make sure that you dismantle those monopolistic cartels to make sure that our dairy farmers are able to earn a decent living out of their agricultural endeavors. To Honorable Inturi, you have said you were arrested by a chief at a very young age to be taken to school. And as fate would be, up to very recently, we've seen you being arrested. And I heard you also arrested during the Kano days and charged with incitement to violence. Maybe Mr. Speaker would need to declare interest because Honorable Inturi, we have worked together in UDA and in the campaigns. And I may be privy to information that contributed to his arrest. I don't know whether Honorable Inturi, you would find it proper because there is already the affidavit that has been filed by Transparency International that touches on a very serious crime. And I do know the circumstances because you had shared with me and a group of us prior to your arrest the circumstances around the issues that have been raised there. Maybe it would be only proper that you share that information with the committee on the circumstances that led to your arrest, whether you are the villain or the victim, and clarify that issue. To Honorable Inturi, I see that you have attached a degree.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
Chair. We are also listening very keenly to the majority leader's questions, but he's not coming out clearly. We would also like to get the benefit of what exactly he's asking. So when you're talking about a situation, maybe you can give us which situation, because the nominee has been arrested severally, not once or twice.
So which arrest are you referring to, the Honorable Jumwa? The first one was really not an arrest by the chief. The chief abducted him and took him to school. I think it's just a question of using the wrong language. He was captured by the chief while looking after cattle and taken to school. Isn't that so? That's what you meant?
Yes.
Yes. But the rest are arrests by different agencies.
I think definitely, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Buyu should be aware, of course, that the first one, I think, it is his description of arrest, and he has explained the second one. And the Honorable Speaker also did indicate that the Honorable Inturi has had some run-ins with DCI Kinoti. And that is the incident that I'm referring to, because he did share with me, or a group of us, at the time we were being tormented by the former regime. In fact, Honorable Speaker, is that just that we were sharing information that had come to our attention that a number of us were targeted for arrests and kidnappings and those sort of things. And the Honorable Inturi happened to share with us an incident that had happened to him, and that was long before his arrest. That's why I'm asking, because it's information that he knows, and that's what I was asking. Maybe it would help in the issue that has been petitioned on by Transparency International. Lastly, Honorable Inturi, you have attached a degree from the University of Nairobi for a Bachelor of Laws that you graduated in December, 21st day of December in the year 2018. And I also know that at the time, I think you indicated you wanted to run for governor. The same DCI Kinoti had attempted to either investigate or charge you on some degree certificate that he said was fake. Could it be this degree certificate that you have put here in the file? Maybe you can also clarify whether this is a degree that was under investigations by DCI Kinoti. Thank you.
Wanda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Linturi and I served in the 11th Parliament in the National Assembly. So we know each other. Mr. Honorable Linturi, you know, as public officers, indeed as state officers, your life becomes a matter of public interest. And I will pick it up from where the Honorable Ichungwa has left. Because I've looked at your CV, which is in the file, and it shows that you clearly have only one degree, which is Bachelor of Laws, second class honors, upper division attained in 2018 from the University of Nairobi. And yet again, it is in public domain. As a public officer, you know, you're under scrutiny. That at some point there you had an issue with the University of Nairobi concerning some degree. Indeed, the university went ahead to, I think, they register you or strike your name out of the roll of graduates on account of some forgeries or alleged forgeries. In fact, the matter was taken up by the EACC. I don't know what became of the investigations. So, just to be clear, so that this can be rested once and for all. Do you have only one degree from the University of Nairobi, which is a Bachelor of Law? Did you present some other degree to the University of Nairobi for admission to this course? Did you ever get a Bachelor of Commerce degree from an Indian university? These were subjects of speculation at the time of the investigations. Two is that on the 28th of April 2021, you were arrested by the DCI. 28th April 2021, or thereabout. You were arrested by the DCI for allegedly using forged signatures to secure some Kenya shillings 530 million loan. What became of this matter? Because I never heard of it again thereafter. Then, when the then, or the current, in fact, maybe it's true, CS for Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, when he appeared before a Senate committee, if I may recall, he made some very disturbing allegations against you, which again is in public domain. That as director of Articon Limited, alongside one Emily Wantai, you forged company documents to facilitate the borrowing of another Kenya's personal loan of Kenya shillings 100 million without the consent of another shareholder or co-shareholder going by the name Kipchumba Ngetich, who was subsequently again fired from the company for refusing to play ball. Those are the words of Dr. Matiang'i. I'm just paraphrasing him. You may want to shed some light on this, even as you seek to be approved to occupy this very high office. Finally, and the Honorable Ichungwa has touched on it, the affidavit by one Sheila Masindi, who is the Executive Director of Transparency International, drawn on the 14th of October 2022. It is also again raising very disturbing issues. One, she of course alleges that you were arrested and charged with the offense of attempted rape on the 30th of January 2021. She goes ahead to say that the matter was eventually dropped. Okay? But the charge raised, those are her words, the charge raised serious issues on your integrity. Kindly comment, make a comment on the same. Thanks.
I think those are sufficiently weighty quite a mouthful. I would allow you to answer those 3 before we take some more. Starting with the Deputy Speaker, but you can choose to start from the tail end or the top.
Let me, Mr. Speaker, start from the bottom up. So I'll start by answering Mheshimiwa Hawandai. And Mr. Speaker, when in my opening remarks, there is an issue that I raised on some duties, and I will do my best to answer so that I do not touch on the issues that are in forecourt for determination. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether this document is with you, and I want to answer the issue, the matter on the affidavit of Mbere on the withdrawal of the issue of the attempted rape that he's talking about. And that is indeed the issue that Mheshimiwa Ichung'wa was trying or sharing, because even before this happened, and shared with my very close friends. Mr. Speaker, I'm an open book. In fact, those that write and say I've litany of cases is an understatement. As I sit here, I have 35 cases in court as I am sitting here. 35. And these 35...
For civil nature or criminal nature?
They are civil, Mr. Speaker. I have no criminal case in any court in this country. And I'm saying the only criminal case that I had in court is the case between the Republic and I, where the complainant was buried. And it's, I think, since everybody knows the kind of bad relationship that I had with the NDCI, and my political persuasion that, or the political position I'm taken in the last general election, or since the handshake, Mr. Speaker, I was the complainant. I was the complainant in this case because this was a case of abduction, Mr. Speaker, and it's a case where people wanted to extort money from me, and I will share the affidavit by Mbere herself, where she's saying that she has reconciled her conscience and she has reflected on the facts and the circumstances relating to this complaint, and she has decided on her own volition to withdraw. Mr. Speaker, the DCI itself decided that Medeka must be turned into a victim. It is just last week when the DCI officers came to my office and even brought me the cash bill and the money that they had recovered from the abductors, because immediately I was abducted and I was released after giving 200,000 shillings and they were asking for 1 million shillings. I reported the matter at Nanyuki DCI offices. The record is there, Mr. Speaker. And I remember I was with you, I don't know whether I shared, Mr. Speaker, when we were there, in the army, Mr. Speaker, when we were in the Senate committee in the army in last year, but one, where I was asking whether I would get permission to go to Nanyuki to record a statement to this effect, so that these abductors would have been taken to court.
I missed the army meeting.
2 years ago, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on National Security, we had a meeting in Diani. That is the time.
The committee with you, but
Yes.
I was not in Diani.
Yeah?
I was a member of the committee with you, I agree, but I was not in Diani.
Yeah, that's where we were. I'm saying the time we were in Diani as a committee. Yes, I was sharing it with the committee, our chairman.
Yes.
So this is the time when I was required in Nanyuki to do a statement for them to appear before court. Because I was traumatized, immediately they were arrested. And since I didn't make, it is the DCI himself who ordered the fund be transferred from Nanyuki to Nairobi. Instructed the DCI then Mr. Mureti. And when this matter came here, people were, other officers were picked, were asked to do different statements. My statements were torn, and they fixed me, framed me as the victim, and that's how I ended up in court. This affidavit from Beru and Oduor, where she decided to withdraw, has given a condition, and because he was cross-examined by the magistrate, and I've put the ruling from the magistrate here, Mr. Speaker, and which I will be willing to share, that the condition was that the person, I was required to withdraw the extortion complaint I had launched against her and the friends at the Nanyuki. That is what happened, Mr. Speaker. I was framed. The idea was to embarrass me, to demean
Making reference to the affidavit, just who is the deponent of that affidavit?
He is a complainant, Mbero and Onduor.
Beryl
Onduor.
Oduor.
Yes.
Beryl Oduor.
Yes, it's called Mbero Akoth Owondo, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, can we get copies of
Can
that
you share it
document?
with
Yes.
And even as, I don't know, as he continues,
Next.
Yes.
yeah, as he continues, maybe just clarify clearly where the charges have been dropped within the meaning of Article 157, Article, I think, 8. Or there's simply an application to withdraw or to have them dropped.
Mr. Speaker, the application to withdraw this matter was done by the complainant herself. So an affidavit, and as you know, you are aware, that the DPP must agree to the withdrawal, sent a letter to the DPP, attached an affidavit to the DPP, and the DPP went to court to seek concurrence from the court on whether the matter should be withdrawn or not. That happened, and Akoth Mbero testified before a magistrate. She was cross-examined, and the magistrate and nothing else other than to assent to a request to withdraw the matter. The ruling from the magistrate is attached to the affidavit of Mbero and Rowe. I did not initiate. The only thing that was of a requirement from them was that I was required to withdraw the extortion complaint that I found with the DCI in Nanyuki. That's how the matter was withdrawn. It was not the DPP who decided to do it, but it was moved by the complainant to withdraw the matter.
And did you withdraw also your complaint then
To date,
on extortion?
to date, Mr. Chairman, I have not. I have not withdrawn, but I can also tell this committee, I have fought so many cases and I don't think I have the energy. I want to frame my mind, given the opportunity, to work for this country. I must also let it go. I must forget the pain, the persecution that I've gone through, and I have left to the conscience of all my persecutors and gone to deal with them, because there are many, as I will continue trying to explain, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you also raised.
Speaker, thank you. I just wanted to ask what you just asked, whether he has withdrawn. But maybe in relation to that, have you been able to establish, other than the complainant in that case, because there are also men who are involved, whether these particular people who are involved were DCI officers? Because why I said that I was privy to information, Honorable Speaker, is because I had the same sort of incident with Honorable Linturi when criminals poisoned people in Kikuyu, and DCI Kinoti did exactly the same thing he did with this case. Turned around the case, recalled the file from Kikuyu when we adduced evidence to the Kikuyu DCI officers that indeed the people who are involved in poisoning of people in Kikuyu were DCI officers. And I'm asking that because would you be aware whether the other men may have been DCI officers?
Mr. Speaker, probably I may want to pursue that once there is the overhaul of the DCI's office, the overhaul of the staff at the DCI offices.
No, the question is very simple. Were DCI officers involved in what you are calling a frame-up? If they were, yes. If they were not, no.
Mr. Speaker, I may want to imagine that they must have been, because calling for a file for an offense that took place in Nanyuki, bringing it to Nairobi, assigning it to other officers, and then turning it to a victim when I was the complainant, then it cannot...
Turning into the villain, the accused, not the victim.
Sorry. Yeah, that's what happened, Mr. Speaker. And if I may proceed, because
Mr. Speaker, even as it continues again,
yes,
maybe because now so many issues have been raised and the names have been dropped, is it possible for Honorable Ntuli to just explain to us how the abduction took place? Very, very brief.
I'm very for Honorable Nduri. I did advise you, only answer questions as they are asked. You'll be very safe that way.
Mr. Speaker, I think this happened a long time ago, and some things are not very good to remember, because they remind you of those bad memories. Probably when you suffer an abduction is when you may be able to really think, and why it's also even necessary to take people through counseling. It is not an easy thing, and especially when the hand of government agencies is involved. Mr. Speaker, let me answer the issue of the 530 million loan that he's talking about.
He alleged two things.
Yes.
You forged documents to get 530 million, then you forged the other documents to get 100 million. So if you can answer those, it will help.
Mr. Speaker, I also invite you to a document that I will share with you, and judgment that was given by Justice Ongud Judge in petition number E068 of 2021. And I need to remind or to inform this committee, which thanks I also give to the Second Senate. I think it is the Second Senate of the Republic of Kenya, because one of the things that I was arrested for, the allegations I was being arrested for when we were to vote for the BBI, are these allegations that Wandai is raising. Mr. Speaker, the matter that Wandai has raised is subject to an High Court matter E138. There are several rulings on this particular issue by Justice Okwani. I will be sharing.
Is the 500 or the 100?
They are all combined. They are
combined?
Yeah, they are all combined.
Oh.
They are all combined, Mr. Speaker. And you remember when I was talking my opening remarks, I wanted some clarity on the issue of sub judice, because they are before court. Certain rulings in particular, which I think will be important, on that particular area of the forgery. The judge has properly pronounced herself on this matter and have been exonerated. But the other issues relating to the net worth of this company and whatever it is are still before court. And
so only make reference to the matter that has been concluded by the court. The others remain contested between you and your accusers.
yes.
Yes.
So, it is not true, Mr. Speaker, that I did any forgeries. And in fact, this was also a situation where the DCI was ending the complainant the person is referring to take away my investment in this particular company. And Mr. Speaker, when I got arrested, I went to court through a constitutional petition and to stop the prosecution, my prosecution on that matter, without the DCI and the DPP properly putting into context my complaint in this matter, because even in this case, Mr. Speaker, I was the complainant because my company had been taken away by fraudsters. And in the course of investigations and the DCI and other agents and found a way to deal with me, then I was also turned again to be the villain. Mr. Speaker, on the last page of this judgment, which I was going to share, on paragraph 119, because DCI and completely refused to investigate my complaints in the wisdom of Justice H.I. Omundu, and directed as follows. Having found that the second respondent did not fully act or investigate the petitioner's complaint lodged with him, I direct him to act on the same and forward his findings to the first respondent within 19 days. During the 19 days, the first and second respondents shall not charge or arrest the petitioners, save for the above. Then I find no merit in this allegation. Mr. Speaker, I want to share, because this document, and goes to that, is to, I'm bringing this to demonstrate and to show that even when people read or questions are raised, Mr. Speaker, the criminal justice system was somehow are not willing to listen to my complaints, and I am just waiting for the appropriate time. So I'll give this one.
Yes,
to share with the committee.
So when I'm seated next to the nominee, I'm requesting that so that we don't go into a serious health crisis, tell him to breathe normal. He looks nervous. Tell him just to say, I'm hearing a lot of things here.
And Valindore, are you nervous?
No, I am not. I am not, Mr. Speaker.
You are not nervous.
I'm not. How would I be nervous? These are my colleagues. We've been around together for a long time.
Can you, clerk, get the document and the reference, make copies and circulate? Go on, Linturi. You know, we are almost halfway your time, and we are still skirting around two issues. Make progress, Honorable Ituri. Honorable, and I put it to you that you forged documents to obtain 2 loans, 500 million, 100 million. Your retort is that you didn't, and you have given a document to buttress that, right?
Yes, I am.
Go to the next issue.
I'm trying to get another ruling from Justice Okwan where...
on the same issue?
On the same issue.
Okay.
Because this was a constitutional petition that stopped my arrest and the
Yes.
finding of the judge was decided not to investigate this matter. The other one is where the judge has clearly pronounced herself on the issues of the forgeries that his alleged was talking about.
So did the court say you forged or you didn't?
I did not.
Okay.
Yes.
Give the ruling. Just give the documents. The clerks will run through and assist the members so that we make progress.
Can I ask,
Point of information, Honorable Speaker.
yes,
Yes, you've got 90 minutes. You've spent 40 minutes explaining all sorts of cases. Just say, I was not charged on this one. This is the decision, and here is the judgment, and then we'll be able to look at it when we retreat. And also, Honorable, through the Speaker, if he's guilty of anything, it will catch up with him even if he's minister. So I think for now, let him explain to us. Let's focus on, I want you to tell me what you're going to do as Minister of Agriculture. I want to know if you're qualified to be Minister of Agriculture. I want to know that you're going to transform the agriculture industry in Kenya. That's more urgent. The other items are before other competent institutions.
Chairman. Chairman.
Yes.
Carrier. I totally agree with the Deputy Speaker and your the Vice Chair of this committee. If we continue like this, and as you had alluded to that when you started speaking, is that almost half the time is gone. And what we really want is to know, much as this is part of what we are supposed to be looking into through this committee, but I think it is also important that we also consider on other matters, as Sholei has indicated, so that we can be able to see the suitability of the candidate, or mostly on matters to do with agriculture. As I also agree that what is going on is also part of what we are, but at least, as she says, this is the case, this was a judgment, pass it, without stories, again, because it's going to really give us...
Ferdinand?
Nduri is a friend of mine, I want to declare that, but given that Chair, and he has confessed himself publicly that he has over 35 cases and is tired of these cases. We are looking for somebody who is free, and that means that, Nduri, you may not have the time and the energy, but they will keep on coming up to do what you want you to do. Tell us how you got with 35 cases. You know, it's too much. And you have said yourself, you want to get rid of them.
All the honorable members, I don't want it to be a free for all. Because we have had a very good sequential process of interrogating nominees. Honorable Nduri, what you need to do, this is not a trial court. We are not going to establish whether you attempted to rape or not, whether it has been withdrawn or not, whether you are framed or not. The question was put to you by the Honorable Wandai on the rape charges. You have given us documents of withdrawal. This committee will not inquire into exactly what happened. We have a court document. He asked you if you forged documents to secure 2 loans. You have said you didn't. And you have given us documents. Move on to other questions that were asked of you so that we can make progress.
So the university issue, then we can...
Then you asked about the university, and you are supposed to have uttered a degree from India. You have put only 1 degree from the University of Nairobi. And he alleged that you had running arguments with the same university about the same degree. Yeah, if you can answer that, then we can move on to other questions that the Deputy Speaker asked you, and give other members an opportunity also to.
Speaker, I didn't want to disrupt the proceedings. But
Yes.
I want to pick from where you said. Let us advise our colleague, Honorable Nzuri is our colleague, that we are not in court, Honorable Speaker, where he can produce all those details and volumes. Maybe he's gotten used to that 35 days and court. This is just a vetting process. Just bullet, and we proceed.
To the extent that they touch on his integrity, he is at liberty and is obliged to furnish us with documentation that you look at. But as to his innocence or otherwise, there's another agency that can deal with that. We can make inferences on these issues at the end, but we have no capacity to say whether he's guilty of this or not.
Speaker,
Yes, Dawood.
if you allow me to comment, I think we are probably taking the nominee a little too far. If we ask him a question, he replies, let him give us those documents after the sitting, give it to the clerks. But in a matter of 35 cases, Honorable Wanyonyi is talking about, that is neither here, neither there. He just mentioned it.
It is actually the nominee himself who has walked too far. Yes, and I had told him that to restrict your answers to the questions as they are being asked, and you will see we'll move very smoothly. So if you finished with when I talk about the degrees, come to Honorable Sholei, then I give another batch of colleagues to raise issues. We have about 20 of us, each one itching to ask you something. You know, agriculture is the bedrock of every lively activity of every individual in this country. Those who don't farm still eat what farmers farm.
Sure. Can I interject?
Okay.
I was wondering, because we already have 1 degree and we can see it here, and we have other important matters. We can allow to tackle the other questions, and then he'll give that other document later.
No, the question was asked, he has to answer it.
Yes. Yes. Mr. Speaker, let me answer this question. Mr. Speaker, I'll give you a document which you will be able to peruse as asked. And the issue that there was an issue with the University of Nairobi. And when my studies were discontinued, were that I was doing my Masters of Law. It is not the undergraduate course I was doing. And I had been admitted to pursue a Masters of Law. And Mr. Speaker, I was resistant that time.
Let me make it very easy for you.
Yes.
Honorable Inturi.
Yes.
Do you have any dispute with the University of Nairobi that is alive over your LLB degree?
None, Mr. Speaker.
That is it. Number 2, have you ever uttered anywhere a degree from India?
Not Mr.
Do you have a degree from India?
And Mr. Speaker, yes. And the documents are here to support that. This matter has been canvassed in court in 2 cases, in 3 cases actually, in 2017. There are all documents here. And I will not be able to mention on that because the same matter again has been raised. The hearing for this case is on 4th of November.
Issues around your
Yes.
Indian degree?
Yes.
Hold on. Issues around your Indian degree are in court.
Yes.
Is that the reason why you did not attach that disputed Indian degree?
That is not really, Mr. Speaker. It's also because the documents that I attached are the documents I'm able to access. One of the issues where it is...
That's exactly what I'm asking you. That you attached the Kenyan degree from the University of Nairobi because it has no issues.
It doesn't have issues.
The matter is there. Answer other questions.
Speaker, how does it rest, really? When he has said that he has got an Indian degree, the certificate must be with him, the degree certificate must be with him somewhere.
He says,
yes,
if I got him right, he has an Indian degree, it has issues around it, the issues are in court, they are active, and therefore sub judice, and we are not here to inquire into his degrees. In any case, the possession of a degree is not a requirement for him to be a minister. But if he has a disputed degree and the degree is found invalid, it goes down to his integrity. Yes. That's the only issue that is available to you to pursue.
That's what I'm pursuing actually. The issue of integrity.
Question, a very clear question, and I want a very clear answer,
yes,
so that we make progress.
Yes. The issue is, we wanted the Honorable Interior to confirm if he ever held a degree from an Indian university. He has said yes. And I'm asking, can we see a copy of that degree certificate? I am being told we can't see it because the matter is in court. That's what I'm finding very difficult, yes.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I also explained the circumstances in which I find myself and why even other certificates are not there. There is also a court order here that bars me from accessing my own house, where all documents...
Mr. Speaker, I give up.
Yeah, it is here. There have been many cases, Mr. Speaker. And if I may read,
Speaker, order.
Restraining the respondent...
Hold on, let him respond.
So, Mr. Speaker, even as I sit here, there are documents, my titles, my logbooks, my everything I can't access. Because there is a bar.
Honorable Nduri,
yeah.
There is an article written by Lord Denning called "The Witness Who Talked Too Much."
Yeah.
If you have an Indian degree, say yes. If you don't have it here, say you don't. The reason you don't have it, you are barred from accessing your premises where it is. We leave it there.
Yeah, I don't have it here.
Yes.
Yes.
You are just volunteering and helpful information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Thank you. Let me go to the list, please.
Those are the questions by the
Yes, yes, that's what I want to get to.
Yes.
But this document is important. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Let me get to the
Honorable Speaker, I'm beginning to think that the candidate is actually avoiding to explain to us how you're going to transform the agriculture industry in Kenya, because you're spending way too much time on the other questions that are not even relevant to this particular docket.
But
Mr. Speaker,
going
to Mbos Sholei's question that the 25-year-old boy asked, I want to agree with her that agriculture, Mr. Speaker, contributes to almost 60% of our GDP. And to transform this country, we require to seriously invest in agriculture. To change this country and to make sure that each one of us as Kenyans is comfortable, we need to re-engineer our ways in how we conduct ourselves in the field of agriculture. Mr. Speaker, and when I speak about agriculture, is in horticulture, in apiculture, in livestock and everything else. So, Mr. Speaker, first of all, what I want to do, considering that agriculture is an evolved function, agriculture allows it, if approved by you as a minister, will basically more deal with the issue of policy. Crop husbandry is in the domain of our county governments. The first thing I want to do is to have a serious sitting with the governors, and possibly, because I believe in teamwork, I believe in building proper networks, I was a meeting with their CEC's agriculture to see how together we can be able to transform agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I know we have a problem in this country. I know the youth can easily be employed if we were to do our agriculture right and correctly. And I'm happy both Sholei's children is really interested in doing agriculture. But if you are to speak to very many young men and women, and whose mindset I am willing and ready to engage to change, is that some of them have taken agriculture as a form of punishment. Many of them are afraid of that, and many of them, because of failure for a guaranteed way of trying to assess what incomes or what you can be able to predictably be able to assess from a crop, have made it very difficult for many of our children to engage in it. So I want to pursue possibilities of how we will be able to encourage our young people and everybody else to get into the farms and do it. Mr. Speaker, I want to invite, including all the members of parliament here, we cannot be crying of lack of food when we are not doing it by ourselves. Before we get out there to cry, there is famine. What is it that we are doing as leaders from the family level to feed ourselves first of all? I want to ask, to call for a candid, robust discussion on how each one of us can be able to feed himself and run away from the reliance of going to markets to buy food when you are not sure where that food has come from.
The question she asked you, the Honorable Nturi, is that what are your plans to ensure that farming becomes more profitable and farmers are assured of a predictable income?
Mr. Speaker.
Then combine that with a question from Ichungwa that your docket is the highest in employment multiplier effect. What are you going to do to ensure that agriculture becomes a major job creation engagement? Ichungwa, that was your question, right? Yes. And how you will dismantle milk cartels in the sector. Take a minute to answer those three questions.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, we now have to see on how we can hand value to our agricultural products. Those that are doing, for example, dairy, we must know how we can be able to engage them from their own farms, from an area where probably you can be able to bring in farmers to pull together. See, for example, collect enough milk, see how we can have processors that can be able to hand value to our milk so that we're able to produce other products from processed milk. That way we'll be able to hand value, farmers may be able to get good return from their investments in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, if we were to be able to seriously subsidize on farm inputs, fertilizer, since we'll be able to bring the cost of production of our food, our food from whatever cost it is, because government would have taken some bit of cost by providing subsidies. That we may be able to hand to encourage the farmer to create and see more value from his produce, from whatever he does on a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that if we were to make sure that there is good return, and if we were really to ensure that once a farmer is able to predict what price he may be able to get from the market, then we'll be able to encourage. I want to, Mr. Speaker, to adopt the technology so that I can be able to link markets. And from a platform, when we are sitting by application of e-technology, one can be able to check and know if I'm bringing carrots and I'm in Meru or I'm in Washingisho, what is the going price of a kilo of carrots in Kisumu, in Nairobi, and whichever other market. So that way, one may be able to take his produce on how, or to any market that will give him the highest return. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to discuss with the county governments to implement the warehouse receipt system. The warehouse receipt system, Mr. Speaker, if implemented, we will be able to hold our food and our produce and be able to sell when markets or the prices of food are good enough for return of investment. Ichungwa raised a question on how we will be able to deal with the cartels in the ministry, and we intend to dismantle them. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that I will invite, I want to ensure that when I get to the ministry with your approval, God willing, then I want to have a Kenya Farmers database. The Kenya Farmers database will be able to show me or tell me how many farmers do we have that are doing milk, that are doing cabbage, that are doing maize, or whatever type of a crop that there is. And that way, even when we get to making subsidies to the farmer, then we can, with precision, say which farmer is going to benefit from what subsidy, whether it's seed, whether it's fertilizer, and that we also would require an e-voucher system so that in partnership with our National Cereals and Produce Board or aggregates, we can be able to make sure that person that really benefits from the subsidies that we'll be giving as government are the really people that require that particular support. To increase productivity, Mr. Speaker, and for value, we also may have to go an extra mile to educate our farmers on what best crop grows where. And with that kind of data, then we will be able to maximize on productivity and avail information to our farmers so that you do not plant barley in an area that requires you to plant rice. Or if you just wake up in Meru and decide how to plant maize here, yet milk cannot do very well in that particular ecological zone. So getting information to farmers will be critical. Moving along with them will be very important, and customer education and training will be very critical if we really have to produce maximally and farmers get really value of their produce. Mr. Speaker, to deal with cartels, as Ichungwa said, these cartels are the same, are the cartels that when you give subsidies of fertilizer, they wait for the fertilizer, buy it, store, repack, and then sell at the exorbitant prices. We will require, Mr. Speaker, to really map out or be able to get the numbers that are supposed to benefit from these subsidies, and this I intend to use an e-platform where we will have a record of all the farmers that we are talking about, so that the final beneficiaries of our subsidies, our knowledge of the information that we want to disseminate as a ministry, then go to the right people.
Thank you. I'll take 5. So note them and answer them. And this time, let's be conscious with time. And members, 1 question each. Junet, Owen Bayer, Robert Mbui, Ferdinand Onyonyi, Murugara. Everybody will have a chance.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I wanted to ask the nominee, when he was giving the story of his life, how he went through, whether he has ever been to a seminary. seminary, whether you have been enrolled to a seminary one time. But more importantly, what plan do you have to the collapsed sugar industry, like Moroni, Chemail, Sony, Mumias, and Nzoia companies? How do you intend to revive them?
Thank you, Speaker. The President, in his wisdom, has separated the Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation. But we also know that statistics show that grain-fed agriculture has failed this country, and irrigation is the way to go to spur agriculture. But as it stands now, if approved by this committee, you'll be Minister for Agriculture, but the docket for irrigation, for which you will depend on largely to produce food, is in another ministry. How do you intend to sync that so that your hands are not tied? Given that the President in his speech said that we intend to increase irrigation to 1.4 million in 3 years. How would you reconcile that? Will your hands be tied such that you will not produce food because you say irrigation is not in your hands? And also you find that there are some high productive areas in this country that have not been looked at positively by the previous regimes. Farming in coconut, in cashew nut, in Biksa at the coast has not been given the due attention that it is supposed to have. And areas like coast have not been helping in growing the GDP in this country. And yet there's high potential in those areas. Look at these two questions, nominee. How do you work in the Ministry of Agriculture to support this country to grow the GDP in agriculture? Thank you. Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. You know, Kenya is grappling with a drought, and a lot of Kenyans are going hungry now. So this is an extremely important docket, because the person who holds that docket has to deal with the issue of food security and ensure that Kenyans don't starve to death. Now, I want to, and you know, Chair, the issue of integrity is also critical in helping us determine the suitability of a candidate to any office. Now, in the 11th Parliament that I served with the Honourable nominee here, while he was serving as MP for Igembe South, the nominee presented a petition to members of Parliament to sign for him so that he could remove the then CS for devolution on the scandal that was rocking this country of about 1.9 billion of NYS. And members of Parliament did sign that petition. Mr. Speaker, I was one of them because he convinced me, and there were really weighty issues. But on the day that this petition was to be read on the floor of the House, the nominee did not show up, and did not show up for quite a while after that. And when he resurfaced, that issue seemed to have been put under the carpet. Maybe because we do not want a CS that might also abandon farmers. Maybe you can tell us why he abandoned members of Parliament.
Ferdinand? I'm laughing kidogo because I was also in that Parliament, but I didn't know those details. Mheshimiwa, you talked about warehouse receipts, and I think you don't understand the concept. I want to give you the light on the warehousing receipts. Is where the farmer takes the goods to the warehouse and is given a title deed for whatever quantity equivalent to the value that you have taken. Then from there you can use a title deed to do business, to do other business. That concept, actually, I am one of those that worked on it from India. So my question is, and you seem to know something about it, what are you going to do to increase, to open up more warehouse and receipt outlets in the country to be able to do business, so that the people can be able to take their goods to the warehouse, get the receipts, and do business? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nominee, drought is ravaging the country. And the reason why Kenyans are suffering is due to the fact that we do not have a good policy on food security. Matters food are governed by the Agriculture and the Food Act, which vests execution in the Agriculture and the Food Authority. We've been told recently, especially by your predecessor, that the ministry contemplates repealing the Agriculture and the Food Act and also abolish the authority so that it can deal with individual crops instead of dealing with crops lumped together for purposes of production, marketing, and distribution. In your own estimation, is that a good idea for the country, and is it going to serve us more positively, or we are digging ourselves into a grave as far as food is concerned?
Thank you. You can answer those 5.
Thank you, Chairman. Mheshimiwa Junet asked about the revival of the sugar industry, and I think that's a good question coming from him because it comes from that side. Mr. Speaker, I think the sugar industry plays or employs very many people, and is a source of employment for young people and others that work from that particular end. And when I interacted with the sugar companies when I was the chairman of public investment, most of these sugar companies were making losses. I think it is the time, Mr. Speaker, I think we really require a serious discussion, because the investment of government in a number of these sugar industries is huge. We've had bailouts by government for these sugar companies a number of times, and we are required to check on whether there is real return on the money that government invests in them, and then open a candid, robust discussion with all stakeholders in trying to understand how best we can revive the sugar industry. Mr. Speaker and Chairman, I would ask Junet to become part of this discussion, because you may understand this area better, but I am told over here that there has been discussions on how to privatize these companies for maximum productivity and for profitability. If that is the direction we may end up going, then Mr. Speaker, and since all stakeholders won't be involved, and if we are to go that way, of course, Parliament will be involved, then at the personal level, I wouldn't have any problem, because I will not be there to dictate. I will only be guiding the process, and it will be all inclusive, all consultative, so that we have one common ground on how we need to revive this important sector in our economy. Mr. Speaker, I think when asked how I will be able to produce food when the irrigation docket is not in my domain, and I want to say that government works collectively. I am sure, and we cannot succeed without water, without going to grow food without water. And anybody that cared to listen to my boss's speech yesterday during the Mashujandi celebrations, he has offered or inviting people to partner to come up with around 100 dams that will be able to assist us in providing water for irrigation. I want and I believe that because cabinet decisions are collective, we won't be, I will personally be able to speak to my sister Alice Wame, because she is in that particular docket, and because we must all deliver as government on how we can break those perceived barriers, if any, so that at least together we can be able to grow food, together we can build the synergy and ensure that our country is food secure, because our reliance on food, our rain-fed agriculture, Mr. Speaker, is not anything that we can really rely on. An interesting question was also raised by my good friend Shmoamboi on my integrity, or whether I will run away and leave the farmers, or leave the farmers alone. Mr. Speaker, even as we discuss that issue, I think for those that have been bunge with me, because I think we served the longest, you have served the longest in the House, and I think I'm the second longest serving. I think my record also speaks for itself in view of the committees that I chaired and the recommendations I've done as a committee, which went to the extent of indicting ministers when we sat in the same house as ministers. And the latest being my investigation committee that I chaired, investigating the possible loss of money from the Ministry of Education by the acquisition of the Ruaraka land where the country lost 1.5 billion. I don't waver. I am incorruptible. You can only persuade me, Mr. Speaker. So to get to the withdrawal of this particular matter, because that matter, Mr. Speaker, it is true and a lot of support in the House. And Mr. Speaker, those that were in that parliament, when all this happened, I came to the chamber and rose on a point of order and a personal statement. And I documented every step that took place, what went on, who called who, where that letter was signed from, and that matter present. Unless if it's, if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I can mention. You know, Mr. Speaker, this country, you allow me to explain the circumstances.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, for those that have never known, you see, when a gun is put on your head, and you understand when you have a CEO who is almost a terrorist, then there are many people that cannot withstand the pressure, the intimidation, and the threats that exist. I can tell you the letter to withdraw was signed.
To withdraw the motion?
Yes. Was drafted by one J. Muturi. The letter I was asked to sign, Njomo called, Speaker Muturi was called from somewhere. He was along, I think in Kilimani, was told, go back to the house, there's a letter is being brought to withdraw that motion. Jomo Gishaka, past 8 o'clock, delivered the letter to the then Speaker, J. Muturi. Those are the circumstances that I found myself in, and you know.
You signed the letter?
Mr. Speaker, yes. Yes, that's it. And the President was there then. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the situation, that is the condition. And that is from that time when my relationship with him went sour. Because that thing has really tormented me. I've spoken about it, but members continue asking. They may not have known, just like all these others were all organized and planned by his agencies. Lastly, Mr. Speaker.
The question from Ferdinand and Murugara.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The whole system, receipt system was passed. It's a law that is in this country. It's supposed to be implemented by the county government. It is the county government that is supposed to license warehouses. And I think that we will not succeed if we do not work very closely with the county governments. And I will deliberately and intentionally work very closely with the governors. I even want to I will be proposing laws to even operationalize this more, Mr. Speaker, because I believe food security cannot be a function of the national government alone. If crop husbandry is in the hands of the governors must participate in ensuring that Kenya is food secure. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage and I want to propose to the governors when you sit down, and by use of this system, because this system, unless my understanding is different from yours, is where the licensed warehouse will be able to mop up the produce in those particular areas. And because I am even told this system is a serious support from some donors and other financial institutions, where if you have a problem, you may be able to be paid up to a certain percentage of the value of your crop. That way, you address your immediate financial needs, as when then the men and women in charge of houses are looking for good prices for that produce. This way, if we were to, the county governments were to do it professionally and organized in a good manner, then we will be able to ensure that in whatever part of this country, at least the amount of food held in our stores or in our houses are clearly known. And this way, Mr. Speaker, you can also encourage commodity exchange through these warehouses, so that if, for example, you do not have money and you have tomatoes, the other one has cabbages, and that's what you want, you can always agree on how to deal with it. So I want to ensure in the participation of governance, I also create county fund reserves, so that the county fund reserves will be able from when there is need for immediate address in terms of our food solutions that we may have within the counties, then the counties can be able to come in and support it. So I want to assure you, Mr. Wanyong, we'll get a framework on how we can do it. In any case, just like I'm saying, this cannot be done without legislation. We will be getting back to you. We will be asking you to kindly support us in this particular matter.
So Chairman. No, I wanted to make a clarification. Yes. If you allow me to. Yes. This, let me tell you that as I'm talking, this Parliament sent some people to South Africa. We saw how it's operating. The Ministry of Agriculture, for our case, will have a department, and already has a department, dealing with the warehousing system. In fact, as I'm talking, the outgoing minister opened a warehousing system in Kitale, which I witnessed, and I think 2 other places. So just tell us that if you are given the opportunity, you'll be able to come up. We will be able to enforce the already established system, so that can be able to move, as you are saying. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I am willing and ready. You are approved to engage. And those systems that are functional.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't want to disturb. I wanted to wait for him to finish. But when Wanonjonye did, I thought maybe at this point I need to clarify that on the question I had asked, and this has to go on record, Chair, that on the day that this petition was to be presented to Parliament, it was not withdrawn, Mr. Speaker. It was on the order paper. But what happened is that the nominee did not show up. So that is a report that was in the House. That is what is unanswered. It was called out, and he wasn't there to move it. So I wanted that to be clear, so that for the record. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Speaker, I am not trying to defend myself, but he knows at what time, in most cases, the order papers are out. I've seen the Speaker was called very late in the night, and the letter was taken to him. So I was not in charge of the Secretariat of Parliament or how that got it there, but that is the truth. And I can always also go back to check the answered what I recorded that particular time.
Point of order, Chair.
Speaker Murugara.
Yes, Mishi.
Point of order, Chair. Honorable Chair. Does that insinuate that the nominee is weak and cannot withstand political pressure?
If Njay Muturi can bully you to sign a
Not by
Chair,
Mr. Speaker.
maybe Chair, not to interrupt Linturi, but may I also make disclosure that it is in actual fact myself who got the Honorable Linturi to Jacaranda Hotel, if he remembers. And the circumstances then, if you know the kind of president we were dealing with, when Linturi tells you when you have a gun over your head, you really have no choices to make. And it is indeed true that letter was typed by Njay Muturi in the business center of Jacaranda Hotel. And I was then the vice chair of the Public Investments Committee, and I was directed by none other than President Uhuru Kenyatta to ship the Honorable Linturi out of this country in a trip that we are going to Turkey that weekend.
So you connived into undermining Linturi's integrity.
We did not connive, Honorable Speaker. And that's what I'm saying. It may not be a reflection of the Honorable Linturi.
Anyway, let's go on with other issues.
Or strength.
I will now give the floor to Murugara. We have 6 minutes of your allotted time.
Mr. Murugara asked whether I have intentions of disbanding AFA. Yeah, so just like I've said before, AFA is a creature of an act of parliament. And minister or as cabinet secretary has no power to amend or to do any other form of changes to any act of parliament. Parliament must be involved. I have not gotten there yet. I have not personally interacted with institutions at FOA and AFA, and I will not be fair to say whether AFA is living to its mandate or not. But in your wisdom, it's the wisdom of this committee that you recommend me serve in that docket. Then one of the first things I'll be doing is to engage AFA and other stakeholders to understand really how we can either transform that institution, whether it's living up to its mandate. But just like when I was trying to inquire, I know it has some bit of challenges because I'm told it has no bond. Maybe probably it has remained dysfunctional, either for strategically or for any other reason, I do not know. But I will try to inquire and see how best we can be able to address the issues that touch on the mandate of AFA, and I will be involving the members of parliament kindly.
Hossein Daoud Mishi Koech Amisi.
Thank you, Speaker.
Mr. Nick, we have 4 minutes.
Speaker, from where I come from, it is argued that you don't milk a store, you only milk a cow. And I want to be on record, Speaker, because we are not making a chair, because we are not making any determination now. So it is known, by the time we are going to make our determination, that the nominee is trying to use court to gag the committee from getting issues of integrity on him, Speaker. That is very critical. And to exit my question, therefore, for him is, there are 70% of this country is arid and semi-arid, or thereabout. And in those areas, they keep animals, cows, camels, goats, and so on. When it comes to the Ministry of Agriculture, it's about crops most of the time. Should you get an opportunity, Honorable Linturi, what new thing will you bring to this 70% people living in 70% of our country in terms of recognizing cows, camels, goats as assets, as investment, so that, Honorable Chair, they can be collateral. Somebody can go to bank and get some assistance. We are keeping things which don't help us, Honorable Chair, until when they are sold or they are slaughtered. So what will Honorable Linturi bring that is new, that will give hope to these 70% of the people living in this country? I thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations, Honorable Nithika. and I thank the President for nominating you. My question is, you stood for election as a governor, as you have already said, and you got more than about 190,000 votes, and that was good. You had a manifesto as a governor, and there is a manifesto of Kenya Kwanza. Could you probably tell us the cross-cutting issues between your manifesto and Kenya Kwanza, and if there were variances in your manifesto and Kenya Kwanza? You have said you will work with the governors. Will you work with our governor, Meru governor, in doing whatever you're going to be doing if you are put in this place? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just before my question, I just want to add on what the nominee has just answered, Honorable Junet's question in terms of reviving the sugarcane industry. I also want to add that you also need to put in your plans the issue of cashew nuts, bixa, and coconut industry, so that it just don't remain as a rhetoric during campaigns, but a real action to be done to ensure that we have this kind of industry. And my question would be, during Mashujaa Day yesterday, His Excellency the President has talked about putting up a fertilizer plant, East Africa Community Fertilizer Plant. Also talked a lot on subsidies on crops and even farming equipment. But more so, we have had little in terms of livestock and fish farming. What plans do you have as KK government to ensure that we also integrate these other two sectors in terms of agriculture? Thank you.
Thank you.
Coach?
I will be very quick. Honorable Linturi, drought is ravaging this country. More than 4 million Kenyans are staring at starvation. Crops are perishing. Livestock is dying. What is your plan in future to cushion farmers from such drought? And number two, what is the KK plan to make sure that we do not necessarily have to, in future, just stare at farmers lose animals and crops? So what will be the plan to cushion farmers on such?
All right, that is the ongoing vetting process of the CS, that is agriculture and livestock, that is Mithika Linturi. And what has come out and why is that on this question that we've been following, the Cabinet Secretary nominee for Agriculture and Livestock Development, Mithika Linturi, has just disclosed that is worth 1.2 billion shillings worth.
His net worth, he was asked that question by the chair of that particular committee, that is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula. So, yep, he is 1.2 billion. That is, worth 1.2 billion. So,
that's it.
And also, just in regards to agriculture, he's been asked quite a number of questions in how Junet Mohammed, I remember asking him what he plans to do about the sugar industry, because to revive Mumia Sugar, Muhoroni, and all those that seem to have failed or are stalling a little bit. He says it's a good plan, and he's going to look into that, and also just to partner with different counties. Let me just take something. He says to transform this country, we require to invest in agriculture.
Yes.
Of course, that is the docket that he has been nominated to head. Now we need to re-engineer our ways in how we conduct ourselves in the field of agriculture. I want to have a sitting with governors and CECs in agriculture to see how we can transform agriculture, just partnering with different counties and the county executive committees and commissioners in regards to that, to make sure that this actually becomes a reality.
So we do expect that that process is going to continue again as we go on with the morning drift right here on Lookuptv. Guess what? Since today's Friday, actually we do have Kuserereka Friday.
Yeah.
And we do know that that particular committee is supposed to go on a slight recess, and then they come back and continue with this vetting process. Amai, could you please introduce the DJ for us, DJ Bonai, so he could actually then take over.
Before we get to the DJ, I think I'll just let's a little bit take to how many people will be coming, or rather other nominees that we will be seeing today. First, the panel, we have we've seen Mythical Inturi. We're expecting Ababu Namwamba to be coming. Also, the Cabinet CS nominee for Education, Mashogu, and also ICT, Owalo will also be coming for the vetting. And yeah, those are some of the people that will be, facing the panel. But like Simba says, DJ, what do you have today, man?
Chukua kitu bwana tumalize.
If you leave me a good time, I swear you are like the oxygen I need to survive. I'll be honest, loving it.